Hello peoples, this is Chris aka Sonic72 and welcome back to another episode of Random Creepypasta Stories. Now today we look at a non-gaming creepypasta called Crying. So without any further ado, let's get right into the creepypasta. Monica's covers were yanked up to her eyes as she covered and stared unblinkingly at the closet door. She could hear it there. It was crying. It was always crying. She was sure of it. She was crying as well, but silently, tears falling but not a sound escaping her trembling lips. Monica was 5 years old. She was crying along with the thing in her closet, the monster she called it. Monica listened to the weeping and sobbing every night. Sometimes she could smell rotting meat, like when her 15-year-old brother Marcus would leave his plate with a half-eaten chicken leg in his room for days, and the smell crept through the vents from his room to hers, as he was in the room next door. But this was much worse than old chicken, much worse. However, the smell wasn't making itself known tonight, and she was glad. She always felt like throwing up when she smelled it. The first time she heard the crying was 6 months ago, only 2 weeks after she had moved to this bedroom. Before, she had the room next to her parents, and this was the storage room, but her parents had decided she was too big for her old nursery and moved her there. At first, she had been ecstatic, but no longer since the crying began. That first time she had been more curious than frightened. She had risen from her bed and opened the closet door. She couldn't quite remember what the monster had looked like, since she'd only seen it for about a second. She only knew that it was real bad, and she didn't like it at all. She supposed she must have screamed then, as her mom ran it at a moment later and turned on the light. The monster disappeared with the darkness. She had broken into hysterics, and her mother had held her tightly, rocking her, assuming that Monica had had a nightmare. Monica knew better, though. She could still hear, 6 months later, the crying of the monster in her closet. She wouldn't open it again, though. She knew better. She had been very lucky last time, and this night herself and her brother Marcus were home. No mom or dad to come and save her, as they were both at her aunt's house for drinks and wouldn't be home till morning. Should she open it now, she was quite sure the monster would eat her up, like the wolf in their storybook, like Little Red Riding Hood. However, as much as she pleaded to be brought back to her old bedroom, her parents left her in the room with the monster, chalking her terrors up into a 5-year-old imagination and deciding she should still face her fears. Her brother Marcus was in the same mind. Not long past midnight, Marcus was stomping upstairs after watching TV for the past few hours. He could hear crying from his sister's room. He silently groaned. She cried every night, and the sound would carry into his room from the vents. He wanted just to flop onto his bed and fall asleep, but his good big brother instincts took over, and he sighed and opened his sister's door. She saw her huddled in her bed, shaking, her sobs easily heard. She started when he entered the room and went over to her and put his arm around her without bothering to turn on the light. "You okay, kid?" Marcus asked his sister. No," Monica replied hastily. Marcus heard her crying again. "Monica, it's okay. I'm here. You don't need to cry anymore." It's not me. It's the monster," Monica said, wide-eyed, staring back at her closet. "Monica," Marcus said exasperately until he saw that she wasn't crying. He listened harder and realized indeed the crying sound did come from the closet. "What the hell?" Marcus started towards the closet door, and when he felt his sister grab onto his leg. "No! Don't open it! It'll come out! It's gonna eat you!" Monica shrieked. "No, it won't. Just stand back, okay?" Marcus said, pulling her off and pushing her aside. She moaned and cowered in the corner as Marcus gulped silently. He opened the door. Monica screamed loudly, but he couldn't hear her. His ears were filled with the thing's loud moans and sobs, which gradually turned into manic initial laughter. His nose burned with the smell of decay, but what he saw on the floor made his blood run cold. On the floor was a writhing, shrieking, half-decomposed human body. Part of the skin on its face was rotted away to reveal its evil skeleton grin. Its fingers were bare and skin, and the body looked bloated, as if it had been underwater for a while. Marcus's dinner came up then. He spewed yellow chunks all over the already revolting corpse demon. The corpse's head turned to face him with a popped and oozing blind eyeball. Marcus tried to run then, but dead eyes seemed to keep him rooted to the spot. Monica continued to screech, losing her sanity with each second at the sight. She would not remember its lair. She wouldn't remember anything at all. The corpse's arm shot out, and its bony fingers locked around Marcus's throat, pulled him towards its decaying head. Marcus fainted then, mere inches from his face of death. Marcus awoke in the cold, dark room. He suddenly realized, though unsure how, that he was in his sister's closet, but it was different. The walls were bare, and the floor was damp. Suddenly he recalled the story his friend Jimmy had told him when he had moved into his house a few years ago, back when Monica still had her old bedroom. He had told him that a boy had died at Marcus's house a few years back, apparently of murder. The boy had been home alone that night, and when his parents returned, they found him in the closet. The closet was nearly airtight. There had been water seeping out of the crack under the door. When he had opened the door, they found the closet half full of water, which washed out with half decomposed body of the boy. The police never caught the culprit, never found out how the water got in the closet, and never been able to explain how the body could have decayed so fast. Jimmy had also told him that he had heard people saying a demon had gotten him, and he was still there, in the closet, waiting for his next victim. Marcus hadn't believed him then, and had forgotten about it until now. He tried to rise, but found himself unable to. Cold and terror gripped him, and he turned his gaze to his hands, but couldn't see them. He realized the room wasn't dark. He was blind, like the corpse had been. He clasped his hands together and felt not flesh, but a grating bone. The bloated palms. He tried to scream, but only a moan escaped his rotten lips. He heard his mother screaming and his father sobbing with his sister, all in hysteria. As they lost their minds at the sight of his mangled flesh, Marcus moaned again, and shook, withering on the floor. He would die there, but he wasn't dead already. He would be trapped in his closet until someone else took his place. But if he would leave when another came, then why would he still hear the other boy shrieking? No, that boy was still there with him on the floor, and would stay there forever, as would he. But the demon was laughing. Marcus hadn't been eaten by the monster, as Monica had screamed, and he would be in warning. This, he thought as he began to cry, was much, much worse. So guys, this is a creepypasta, and yeah, I know I was stuttering throughout like most of it, but sorry, it's just my voice. Yeah, I really stuttered a lot. So my thoughts on this creepypasta. Actually, it was pretty good. I mean, like, I would have expected it to be like an actual monster, but it actually wasn't. It was actually a decaying flesh of a boy. I mean, like, I would have thought that like the boy would have actually done something else to Marcus besides just take his soul and put him inside his body, but apparently I was way off on that. I thought the monster would have probably eaten Marcus or probably just like ripped off a piece of his flesh, but apparently it was his soul, which is actually a really nice twist to it. But yeah, and also another thing was how it basically caught you off surprise. Like, you thought that this was an actual monster, but apparently it was just a decaying body, which was actually kind of shocking though, because normally creepypastas don't usually have a near dead person like still moaning and still alive, when basically they gave the description that he was decaying and crap like that. So yeah, so if you like what you see here, like, comment, subscribe, or do whatever you want, and guys, I'll see you people's next episode. So if you like what you see here, like, comment, subscribe, or do whatever you want, blah, and people's, peace out, people's, and brr.